Currently, it is hot here on the campus of Florissant Valley Community College. I'm Jell, and I'd love to give you your noon news update. Unfortunately, I can't. You see, here throughout the summer at Florissant Valley Community College, there's all sorts of renovations and changes and things going on in order to prepare for the upcoming fall school year. Unfortunately, that sometimes means that the internet doesn't work. And right now, I have spent the last half hour trying to get the internet to connect. And not really had any luck there. It's usually a little on the slow side, but this time, no. I can't bring up the newscast. I can't get my headlines. And as none of us saw this coming, I don't have a paper newspaper to read to you either. So my deepest apologies that we unfortunately do not have a noon news break or weather. I might be able to pull something together after a short break because it looks like the internet might be working on a separate computer, but I will have to keep you posted on that one. So if y'all don't mind, we will take a short break, and when I get back, I will try to give you a noon news update. Until then, though, here is Signal the Sirens by Inimical Drive here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you for listening, and my deepest apologies for the lack of a noon news update. That was Signal the Sirens by Inimical Drive here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and, no, internet's not working, so unfortunately I definitely can't get you your, even close to noon news break. Just the other, my own personal laptop was able to bring up, like, the MSN homepage or something stupid like that, but nope. I'm getting we are having trouble finding that site error on any site I attempt to go to, on pretty much anything. So unfortunately that means no noon news break, and that I don't have the list of upcoming games for this week and next week and what anime are in theaters. But that will not stop GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. No, for that, I at least make a list of notes for me to work with. So, let us get on with the show. At least one game that came out this week I can talk about, and that would be Dream Match Tennis VR. The first PlayStation 4 game to use the PlayStation navigation controller. What's the navigation controller? Well, if you remember, way back on PS3 when they released the PlayStation Move, they had a companion controller that was essentially the PlayStation equivalent of the nunchuck. Well, there's finally a game on PS4 that uses that, so you can use a Move and nunchuck control scheme in VR. Unfortunately, Dream Match Tennis does not have any online play, but it does look kind of interesting. I mean, it's supposed to be a full-on, full-body tennis simulation where you can move around the court using the navigation controller and, of course, one-to-one tracking on your racket, as you would expect. But yeah, you just play against computer opponents. Still, pretty neat that that game came out. I'm curious about it because it does come to us from Bimbusoft, the Chinese company responsible for the infamous Roller Coaster Dreams. But this one looks at least a little bit better. Moving right along, though. Kill la Kill, as we might have mentioned in a previous show, is getting a fighting game, and it has been a very interesting and controversial subject. See, a lot of people really loved the anime Kill la Kill. Came to us from Studio Trigger. Good times. Lots of people had fun with it. And they had announced that there was there was going to be a big announcement from Arc Systems Works and Studio Trigger, and people were like, we love Arc Systems Works, they're the makers of Guilty Gear, and they just made Dragon Ball FighterZ. Whatever this is, it can only be good. And then they reveal the Kill la Kill fighting game, and people are happy, and then they find out it's not actually being made by Arc Systems Works, they're co-developing it, but it's being made by, I think the company's called A+ Games, basically the people who made the Little Witch Academia game that recently came out, which looked good, but did not play very good. Lots of people were disappointed in the Little Witch Academia game, and they're like, this this isn't a real Arc Systems Works game that felt like false advertising, and thus far, A+ Games hasn't made a single really good game, so people were really disappointed. Now it turns out that Arc Systems Works is at least a bit more involved. They're at least helping A+ Games out, on top of being the publisher. But the game is shaping up to be an arena-style fighter. That is to say, something close to Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm. Now, the problem here is that arena-style fighters are a very broad spectrum. In interviews, they've described the game as being like Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm, but that might just be because that's one of the most well-known arena fighters out there, rather than, describing it as being like Castlevania Judgment, which is something only I would tell you is actually a good thing. That's on the list of episodes I need to do. Yeah! The problem with Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm is that it's all spectacle and no substance. It's a lot of, hit buttons, do really flashy thing, makes a great single-player game, not that great competitively, because, you hit the buttons and it kind of just feels like you're flying out of control, like your character is almost automatically doing half the things in the game. You only feel half in control. But in other games, you feel fully in control, and an arena-style fighter can be a big, deep, meaty fighting game that gives you a much greater degree of control and can be really fun. And there's a lot of space in between that. Point is, it is a rather popular genre in Japan, and there's a lot of games that fit into that genre now, and it's going to be interesting to see where Kill la Kill actually falls on that spectrum. Is it just basically a knockoff of Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm? Is it going to have hidden depth like Castlevania Judgment, which I still will tell you is a sorely underrated game if you actually gave it a chance and looked past the character designs? Could it be slightly baffling like Final Fantasy Dissidia, or doubly baffling like Final Fantasy Dissidia NT? Could it wind up having more meat on its bones, or could it wind up being a shallow mess like One Piece Burning Blood? We'll find out in the future, because, let's just be honest, a lot of us are going to pick up the game because we like Kill la Kill, and we want to play a Kill la Kill game, but a lot of us also wish it was just a normal 2D fighter. But I understand why it isn't. Normal 2D fighters are actually harder to make than you might think. Moving on. Indivisible. Speaking of Studio Trigger, it's getting an opening animation by Studio Trigger. And it appears to be mostly done. They've got a preview out for it. A lot of people seem to like that. I did not know they were going that far with it. And I think that's cool. I think that's really cool. I have some mild beef with Indivisible, but overall it's looking to be a solid Valkyrie Profile clone. Also, Darksiders 3 is set for November 27th, a game a lot of people have mixed feelings about. Mostly because the primary artist for Darksiders, Joe Madeira, wound up working on that Battle Chasers game and thus did not work on Darksiders 3. And one of the central draws of Darksiders has always been the art and visual style. He's still loosely involved with Darksiders 3 and has given the game his blessing, but man, Fury does not look as good as when he draws her. It's just, yeah, that's the hook for Darksiders 3, is that you get to play as Fury, and it kind of stings because the moment I saw Fury, I was like, I want to play as this character. And then the reveal trailers come out, and I'm like, wow, this is, what did you do? But it might still be a really good game. I'm glad that a Darksiders 3 is even being made, considering all the companies involved had gone out of business. So we'll see how that turns out. Meanwhile, Nintendo. Nintendo is seeking 20 million Switches sold by the end of the fiscal year. 20 million, that's their goal, and I'm going to be interested to see if they make it, because I know the Switch is definitely a hot product. A lot of people like it. Now it is actually quite easy to find on store shelves. There is no longer a shortage of them, for better or for The only worst would be manipulative games that companies play. So mostly for better, you can just go out and buy a freaking Switch. Unlike how the Wii was. Which really puts the whole Wii situation in perspective. If you don't remember, which I have a hard time believing you don't, but the Nintendo Wii was like sold out for 2 years straight. Like 2 full Christmases of the Wii being a hot product that no one was able to get. It was very strange. And, yeah, Nintendo was just like, oh, we can't make them fast enough. But, you seem to be making Switches fast enough, I'm just saying. And I am curious how the Switch's sales will compare against the Wii's. In fact, that was one of the other weird things. I need to double check these facts, but I saw a list recently, and supposedly the PS2 is still the best-selling console of all time. Like, the Wii is number 3. I forget what number 2 was. So it's still up there, but it is kind of interesting that the PS2 outsold it. Well, then again, there was a lot of later sales on PS2s as well. And that's right. Yeah, no, that doesn't count. I just remembered. Of course the PS2 is the best-selling console of all time. It breaks like crazy. Like, depending on the model. People have taken them apart, and some models are actually pretty sturdily built and will last a good bit. Other models break nearly instantly because they're stuck together by duct tape and springs. I'm not even kidding. It's, some of the PS2 models are really poorly made. And a lot of people, they couldn't just get their PS2s repaired, so they had to buy another one, and so the high sales of the PS2 kinda doesn't count. Just remembered that. Moving on, though, speaking of Nintendo, apparently Pokemon Go has made $1.8 billion now. Good job. Maybe you should focus on that rather than trying to make a Harry Potter game, Niantic. I'm just saying. But, money talks. I'm sure someone threw money at their head to do Harry Potter, and who knows, maybe someone else will handle it. We'll see what goes down with that. Moving along, Phoenix Wright is getting a second season of its anime on October 6th, which is surprising because the Phoenix Wright anime wasn't that good. It was animated by A1 Pictures, and it was incredibly, incredibly stiff. I watched like 2 episodes of it, and I was like, wow, the animation in this is so lackluster that it would almost be better to just watch the game. The DS game, where it's just characters emoting, but those emotes were better handled. Because, the anime was actually really close to the games in terms of visual style. It didn't really take advantage of the medium, do any dynamic camera angles. No, pretty flat shot of Phoenix just standing there, pretty much doing his emotes from the game, just with slightly better connecting between them. But the animations in the game were better? I don't know, a lot of people were pretty disappointed by the Phoenix Wright anime. But hey, who knows, maybe Season 2 will wind up being good. You know what, I think I'll tune in for an episode. Maybe they'll switch studios, maybe they'll get a higher budget, maybe A1 will realize that they have an incredibly bad name in the anime fandom and step their game up. Who knows? Moving on, though, hackers have a GameCube emulator running on the Switch. Apparently, it still has a few rough spots, but yeah, no. GameCube emulation on Switch seems plausible. Which is surprising for a fan group, because they, of course, don't know all the intricate inner workings of a system, and emulating a console requires exponentially more power than the original console had. It's the thing you always gotta remember. Could you get a GameCube game running on the Switch? Oh yeah, absolutely, if you, ported it. But literally emulating a GameCube and running it on Switch, that actually takes a bit of meat and muscle, and fans have it running, so I expect Nintendo to pull off the same too, maybe. Who knows? Honestly, the whole situation with how the Nintendo Switch doesn't have virtual consoles, but is practically made of arcade ports and console ports and ports of games, honestly a little silly. Speaking of which, though, Money Puzzle Exchanger, also known as Money Idol Exchanger, is available on the Nintendo eShop, and that makes me happy. It is a very, very, very flashy and anime puzzle game from the Neo Geo that plays very similar to Magical Drop, basically, but with coins. The idea is that you are actually exchanging money. Like, if you match 5 1 coins together, they combine into a 5 coin, and then 2 5 coins make a 10 coin, and then 5 10 coins make a 50 coin, and 2 50 coins make a 100 coin, and so on. And that's what you're doing, is you're grabbing the coins and you're flinging them at one another to combine them into bigger coins and make chain reactions that, of course, send garbage blocks over to your opponent's side of the screen. Meanwhile, anime characters are animating in the background, doing crazy attacks as banking-themed magical girls fight one another. It's a very strange game, but I was just getting a bit enthralled by it because I was watching a stream of someone playing it, and I love the art in it. It's very 90s anime, and someone in the chat wound up asking, I wonder who did the art for this, and that was while the credits were rolling, and we got a name, Atsuko Ishida. And I wound up looking her up, and very interesting person. Turns out she actually did the character designs for Magic Knight Rayearth, despite not being a member of Clamp, who's usually credited with that. Also did Shamanic Princess, did Brave Express Might Gain, and Brave Police J-Decker. Did a lot of 90s anime character designs, of course, as you could probably guess from her style, but the most interesting thing was that Atsuko Ishida seemed to work really closely with Masami Obari and Tsukasa Kotobuki, who are two of my favorite character designers. You could definitely see similarities and differences in their styles. It's like all three of them tend to draw female characters with very large cheeks. So it's interesting, but Atsuko Ishida in particular draws like super huge eyes. Just very interesting noticing all these different stylistic choices and realizing that a lot of my favorite anime of the past involved the same people, and that a lot of these people tended to work together a lot. Just interesting stuff. Regardless, hey, there's a nice puzzle game up on the eShop. And I love the thumbnail for it, because the thumbnail on the eShop is just like, it's pretty much just 2 of the characters just before the match starts. So you just get like a full picture of their character portraits. And yeah, if you are into that kind of anime, the moment you see that thumbnail, you go either I'm in or I'm out. It's very cut and dry there, and I like that. I like the look. It honestly ties into a thing that I've been meaning to do for a while, and I think I might start scripting that today. I've been wanting to do an episode on competitive character-driven puzzle games. Mostly because it sounds absurd, but that's what puzzle games were in the 90s, and there was a reason behind that. Like, I don't have any hard evidence other than a lot of these games didn't show up until the 16 and 32-bit era, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that your game was going to cost $50. Japan didn't really play a lot of games on PC. Their stuff was very console-based. Back in the 90s, consoles were all cartridges, and cartridges are expensive. You couldn't really do a $20 budget game on Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. You couldn't do that kind of thing. If you were making a console game in the 90s, it was going to cost, like, at minimum $50, no matter how simple the game, no matter how small the size of the program. And as such, people are out there going, hey, puzzle games are really fun, they're weirdly addictive, but they're also incredibly simple. How do we justify a $50 price tag on the newest consoles? And the answer was to focus on more modes and more content and flashier presentation, which eventually led to a focus on the versus mode and adding characters with attack animations and giving each character a unique ending. And eventually, they did manage to get what would have been considered $50 worth of content onto a cartridge back in the 90s for a puzzle game. And, that was what they did. And continued on to PS1, Saturn, and so on. But a lot of those games didn't come to America, or if they did come to America, they had to be drastically changed. It's all a crazy thing, and I'd love to talk in more detail about it. Even though I'm not like a super hardcore puzzle gamer, I certainly wouldn't be able to play seriously competitively. I cannot think that fast. Competitive puzzle games are very, very fast. But it is a thing I'd like to talk, I really need to talk about and do an episode on, because so many people associate puzzle games with casual and cheap, and the puzzle games of the 90s were very much not that. They were fancy, they were flashy, they had to justify having a full price tag, and they were also very competitive. There were tournaments for Puyo Puyo back in the 90s, for Puyo Puyo 2, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Kirby's Avalanche. They had tournaments for that in Japan, and there's some footage of a tournament on YouTube that is freaking amazing. However, we need to take a break, so here is Fire by Clockwork here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you for listening, and please stay tuned for more GameBabble Live. And the internet still seems a little broken. Still. That was I Got It Made by Daluza here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jel, and I've got some good news. We, loosely speaking, appear to have the internet working-ish. It likes to be dumb. Yeah. So, you know what? No, I'm going to explain this situation because it's a grand example of why computers drive me absolutely nuts. Basically, the internet was not working on Chrome on the school computers and not working on Firefox on my own personal laptop. But Firefox on the school's computer seems to work. Having said that, Chrome no longer wishes to close. Yeah. What even sense does that make? And so now I'm cobbling together the news report, and then I will be able to give you the new game releases and anime as well. But first and foremost, let's get that noon news. Actually, you know what? No, we'll do it at 1. We'll do it at 1, so it's at the top of the hour. We will have a 1 o'clock news update. My deepest apologies for the fact that I couldn't get you one at noon. Just, sometimes computers and internets are stupid. So if you're unfamiliar, welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. I'm your host, Jel, and we were just going through a fun list of random video game news. So, moving along, apparently Japanese McDonald's has Pokemon toys for the next movie, which is called Pokemon the Movie, Everyone's Story. I do find this amusing just because, here in America for Pokemon the first movie, it was Burger King that had the toys, and McDonald's actually refused to do Pokemon toys for America. And before that, when Pokemon first launched, the only place the only fast food chain that was doing Pokemon toys was KFC. Something I still find very strange. You don't associate KFC with toy promotions, let alone Pokemon. But that was the first restaurant here in America to do Pokemon toys. Anyway, yeah, so there is a new Pokemon movie on the horizon called Pokemon the Movie, Everyone's Story. It's a continuation after the last movie, which was, of course, Pokemon I Choose You, which was kind of sort of an alternate universe reboot thing, which, it has Ash, it has Pikachu, but everything else is pretty much new. It's constantly introducing, new characters and things, different animation style, and so on. It was definitely a movie that left people scratching their heads, mostly due to the weird scene where it seemed Ash started hallucinating and Pikachu talked. It was weird. I did not see it myself, but I do scratch my head at that. I should see it, though, because just to see how they're handling it, because it is interesting to see them decide to veer the Pokemon anime in such different directions, because, of course, Sun and Moon is the first time they've drastically changed the Pokemon anime in a very long time, and that's, of course, what's currently airing. And then, the movies, they're like, we're not even going to be related to the TV anime, we're just going to do our own thing. But there's a part of me that really wishes they would have done it like that Pokemon OVA series they did. I want to say it was called Generations, where it wasn't Ash, it was actually Red, and it followed closer to the games, and that was really cool. I really wish they would have done that for the movies, but whatever. So they are making a new Pokemon movie. I think it airs in December in Japan. I'm not 100% sure, but it focuses on Lugia and the new Pokemon Zeraora. So, yay, new Lugia movie. You could almost consider it a remake of the second movie, but not. Moving right along, though, speaking of anime movies, Dragon Ball Super has a movie coming out. And that movie has a title. Do you know the title of the Dragon Ball Super movie? It is titled Dragon Ball Super Broly. That's right. Broly is gonna become canon. When Broly? December for Japan, no clue for America. But in preparation for this, I was searching this up, and apparently the original Dragon Ball Z Broly movie will be in theaters here in America in September. I might have to show up for that. But either way, yes, Dragon Ball Super is making Broly canon. Broly versus Kale, now possible, loosely speaking. Maybe even Broly versus Kefla. I don't think either of those are happening in the movie. But, yeah, no, it's going to be kind of a reboot of Broly. I hear they're kind of reworking the character slightly, but you look at that poster and you go, yeah, no, that's Broly. I mean, they gave him like a little scar on his cheek, so now he looks, when he's not transformed, he looks oddly like Yamcha, which is hilarious. But, yeah, no, Broly, it's happening, and I am amused by that. To anyone unfamiliar with Dragon Ball lore, I guess I should explain this. So, Dragon Ball movies are technically a separate canon from the TV series. They don't actually count. But there has been a series of 3 Dragon Ball Z movies that focus on Broly, the legendary Super Saiyan, who people freaking love because he's just a gigantic muscle-bound beast. He just pounds people into the dirt and is ludicrously overpowered to the point where in the original movie they couldn't the way they beat him was by making his own power overload and explode in a way that, like, he was like a balloon. He was like a balloon of pure power, and they popped him, and he exploded. But he got better. And so, Broly is a very popular character amongst the fandom. Some people hate him because he is a very one-note character. He hates Goku. And he's going to punch him very hard and make him dead, because that's what a Broly do. But you know, on the flip side, he is a raging muscle-bound beast who can make Goku hurt, and so people go, yay, that's cool. A lot of people like him. Either way, no matter what you say about Broly, whether you love him or you hate him, can we all agree on one thing? At least he's not Jiren. I really, really hate Jiren. Yes, Broly is a lame one-note villain. Sure, fine, go with that. Jiren is boring, and I hate him. I hate Jiren so bad. This is the worst character in the history of Dragon Ball. hate Jiren. I really hate Jiren. Because at least Broly has an emotion. Jiren just kind of sits there. Moving right along, though. Warframe is coming to Switch. They are working on a Switch port. I find that to be very commendable. Because Warframe is a very pretty game. Very, presumably system-intensive game. So the fact that they are going to try to get Warframe running on Switch, it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. Anyway, I do believe I have a, I've got a little bit more time to talk. So before I have to get to actually giving y'all a news report for 1 o'clock. Moving on, though. Chasm, a procedurally generated Metroidvania, comes out July 31st for PS4, Vita, and Switch. The PS4 and Vita versions are cross-buy. Did I write Switch? I meant PC. No Switch version. PS4, Vita, and PC. The PS4 and Vita versions are cross-buy. Sorry, no Switch version yet. It'll probably come later. So why does all that matter? Because, admittedly, I didn't pay attention to Chasm. I didn't look into it. It was just like, oh, yeah, some game. And then I read the comments on this news report, and some people were very happy. Why? Because that was a game that was kickstarted back in 2013. 5 years ago. So, it's been a long time coming. And apparently there were quite a few kickstarted games from 5 years ago that we're still waiting on. Because sometimes games, especially indie games, can take a very long time to develop. So it's interesting to see something that has been in development for that long, that was kickstarted technically before the big Kickstarter game boom, finally making it out, and I really hope that it was worth it. It sounds interesting enough. I do hope they make a Switch version, but yes, there's no Switch version because there was no Switch when they started development. They'll probably work on that now. Moving along further, though, Zenki Zero is hitting North America and Europe in spring 2019, so it's a ways away, but a U.S. release is confirmed and loosely dated. Spring 2019 is a very broad date. For those unfamiliar, Zenki Zero is some kind of crazy survival game, not survival horror, survival, from some of the makers of Danganronpa, wherein you play as a group of clones based loosely on the 7 deadly sins who age very fast, but it's okay because they can be recloned, and that's the whole point, because every time you die, the following clone gets stronger, depending upon how you died, and there's a lot of strange ways you can die. And, yeah, it sounds like a very weird, slightly horrific, strange game. I'm kind of interested in it, because that's weird. They're all stranded on an island, and they're trying to survive, and they're all a collection of clones. Just weird. Very, very weird. Very, strange game. I'm interested to see how it turns out. So, now that we have wrapped that part up, I do believe it's time to give you all a break while I get my work going on getting you a proper news report and a new games for this week and next week and anime list and all that good stuff now that we have an internet that functions. So, with that in mind, I kick you back to the music with Everywhere I Go by Adrian Julius Caesar here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. Currently, it is 91 degrees here on the campus of St. Louis Community College at Florissant Valley. I'm Jell with your approximately 1 o'clock news update. EMTs and paramedics are now eligible for some state benefits if they die in the line of duty. Governor Mike Parson has signed a bill that adds medical first responders to the list of recognized public safety officers. The bill will let the families of those responders claim up to $25,000 in state benefits after their death. Children of fallen public safety officers also receive free tuition at state colleges as part of their benefits package. A fire at a Missouri gas station is giving new meaning to the term hot car. A Facebook post made Sunday shows a Lamborghini catching fire at a mobile station in the St. Louis suburb of Kirkwood. Witnesses say a car pulled away from a pump with the hose still attached, splashing gas onto the Lamborghini's engine. The car was destroyed, but no one was hurt by the fire. And Cardinals catcher Yadier Molina will be playing in his ninth MLB All-Star game next week. After all, Molina is replacing Giants catcher Buster Posey, who will miss the Midsummer Classic because of injury. He is joining teammate Miles Mikolas on the NL squad. The game will be played July 17th at the Nationals Park in Washington, D.C. And now on to the weather. Today, it's cloudy, a high of 95 degrees, low of 73 degrees, 20% chance of precipitation. That goes away tomorrow, though. Tomorrow it's just sunny, 93 degrees, 93 degrees for a high, 72 degrees for a low, 0% chance of precipitation. Thursday, sunny, high of 94, low of 72, 0% chance of precipitation. Friday, mostly sunny, high of 96, low of 74, 0% chance of precipitation. And then Saturday, partly cloudy, high of 94, low of 76. Hey, look at that 20% chance of precipitation. You'll have to excuse me, 20% chance of precipitation became kind of a joke to me, as last week, when we declared that there would be a 20% chance of precipitation, we got that 20%. But yeah, no, Wednesday through Friday, it's looking dry as all heck, and hot as all heck, too. Yeesh. So, stay cool, everyone. Anyway, this has been, currently it's 91 degrees here at KCFV. I'm Jell, and this has been your 1 o'clock news break. But please stay tuned, because we are going to take a break, and when we get back, we will be back with the video games, with the new games for this week and next week, and what anime are in theaters as part of GameBabble Live. Anyway, we will kick you back to the music with Friends by Marshmello and Anne-Marie here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you for listening, and please stay tuned for more GameBabble Live, and my deepest apologies for the late news. That was Friends by Marshmello and Anne-Marie here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. We like to kick the show off with what games are coming out this week, what's coming out next week, and what anime are in theaters. I forgot to look up that last one. But unfortunately, I knew I forgot something. But unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, we were not able to do that at the top of the show, so we're doing it now. So, PlayStation 4, what you got for us this week? Well, this week, PlayStation 4 gets Dead by Daylight Curtain Call, 20XX, which is a Mega Man X-inspired roguelike, Black Sea Odyssey, Defiance 2050, which is a remake of, kind of a remake, reinvigorating of the oldish MMORPG Defiance, which was a tie-in with a Sci-Fi Channel TV show. Obviously, TV show's not back, but they decided, hey, our MMO was pretty good, let's clean up the graphics, let's release it on new systems. Hooray. Moving on. Holy Potatoes, a weapon shop? Hotel Transylvania 3, Monsters Overboard, Insane Robots, MXGP Pro, Shining Resonance Refrain, The Culling 2, The Spectrum Retreat, Super Destronaut DX, and, let me see something real quick. Yeah, Earthfall on Friday and Chicken Assassin Reloaded on Saturday. Xbox One, what you got for us? Xbox One is getting Defiance 2050, Hotel Transylvania 3, Monsters Overboard, MXGP Pro, Shining Resonance Refrain. So, hey, there's actually a JRPG for all you Xbox One owners out there. Thank goodness. The Culling 2, 20XX, Ghost 1.0, Super Destronaut DX, Warhammer Vermintide 2, Earthfall, Gekido Kintaro's Revenge, which is the GBA Gekido game. It got released on Switch a little bit earlier. They have enhanced it with new HD cutscenes and a second playable character and a 2-player mode. So that's back. Insane Robots, The Spectrum Retreat. Nintendo Switch, what you got for us? Well, the Switch got Another World, Pato Box, 20XX, Bomber Crew, Hotel Transylvania 3, Monsters Overboard, Hunting Simulator, Muddle Dash, Never Out, Shining Resonance Refrain, The Lion's Song. And then we've got Arcade Archives Neo Geo, The Super Spy, Philipix, Phil's Epic Adventure, Ghost 1.0, Holy Potatoes, A Weapon Shop, Johnny Turbo's Arcade Express Raider, Radio Hammer Station, Star Story The Horizon Escape, Super Volley Blast, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Darts Up, Epic Loon, Octopath Traveler, and Super Destronaut DX and Chicken Assassin Reloaded. The 3DS is getting Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, and the PlayStation Vita is getting Muv-Luv and Muv-Luv Alternative, along with Super Destronaut DX. Now then, next week, what are we looking forward to? Well, the PlayStation 4 is getting Adventure Time, Pirates of the Enchiridion. Sure. Frost, Ice Cream Surfer, which I think is a side-scrolling shooter. Mother Gunship, Race Arcade, Sonic Mania Plus, Tempest 4000, The Path of Modus, Toho Genso Wanderer Reloaded, Sonic Mania Encore Pack, The Moose Man. I think the Encore Pack should be like adding Ray and Mighty to people who already have Sonic Mania. Nice. The Moose Man, Thumper, and yeah, that should be where next week ends. So, moving on, Xbox One. Next week you can look forward to Adventure Time, Pirates of the Enchiridion, Mother Gunship, Sonic Mania Plus, Tempest 4000, The Path of Modus, Sonic Mania Encore Pack, The Moose Man, Nidhogg 2, and Frost. Nintendo Switch, what you got for us next week? Well, they've got Adventure Time, Pirates of the Enchiridion, Hand of Fate 2, Mugsters, Sonic Mania Plus, Toho Genso Wanderer Reloaded, The Moose Man, Vertical Strike Endless Challenge, Frost Pool Panic, Sausage Sports Club, Tanzia, Hero Key, Spheroids, Thumper, and VSR Void Space Racing. 3DS next week has nothing, and Vita next week has Ice Cream Surfer. So that wraps up the new games for next week. Let's do a quick search on anime. So, July, what have we got? Yeah, okay, Fireworks, that's already over. Yes! Makia, When the Promised Flower Blooms will be showing July 20th through the 26th. I think it might only be at the Tivoli. I need to double check this. I hear it's a pretty darn good movie that you should take your mother to. So I'm going to try to do that. We shall see. Sounds interesting. Moving on, Princess Mononoke will be part of the seemingly never-ending Studio Ghibli Fest. Not that I'm complaining. It'll be in theaters July 22nd dubbed, July 23rd subbed, and July 25th dubbed. Also, Sailor Moon R and Sailor Moon S movies will be part of a double feature that will be showing July 28th dubbed and July 30th subbed. And that appears to be it for July. Anything to look forward to in August, though? I think we've got another Sailor Moon double feature in August. Never heard of Ami's First Love. Interesting. So, there we go. That wraps up our new game releases and new anime in theaters for this week. And yeah, sure is some stuff. Based on the time, I think I'm going to keep going. So, getting back to our video game news and information, Splatoon 2, Inklings vs. Octolings, will be July 20th through the 21st. That's the thing that's happening. That's the next turf war. I'm going to try to make a point of being there if I don't forget. I don't play Splatoon 2 nearly as much as I should. It completely ruined the flow of my game. I'm nowhere near as good as I was with Splatoon 1. But speaking of Splatoon, Pearl and Marina are not only getting amiibos, but their amiibos will unlock their outfits from the Octo expansion. Disappointingly, does not unlock their normal outfits, but you get the Octo expansion ones. Also, let's see, Skullgirls is getting a Switch port, because pretty much everyone's trying to see if they can port something to the Switch, as they should. And hey, here's something fun. The Nintendo Switch version of Taiko no Tatsujin might be coming to the West officially under the title Taiko no Tatsujin Drum & Fun. This will actually be the second time Taiko no Tatsujin has come to America, because back on PS2 we got one under the title Taiko Drum Master. If you never played it, it's actually a really fun game. In the arcades, you hit a taiko drum with big old sticks, and the taiko drum is a very, very large drum. The home version drum is nowhere near as large, but it certainly gets the job done, as long as you duct tape it to a coffee table like I did. I remember after getting the US one, I went out and bought a bunch of the Japanese ones, because they were fun. They were fun games. But the US one very much had a very American soundtrack, but some of them were actually really good choices. Actually, the US version of Taiko Drum Master had Rock the Dragon. It was the only song I perfected. Not even that big a fan of it, but it's a very short song. I was very happy to have it in there. So yeah, this will be like the second time Taiko no Tatsujin gets a Western release. I'm curious how the Switch version plays. Also, another similar game to Taiko no Tatsujin, I guess I should mention this, was Donkey Konga, which I'm only now finding out did not have a very positive reception in America. Admittedly, I never bought the US one. I imported the Japanese one because I was like, oh geez, well I don't really care about American music. I'm all about that J-pop. Give me the Japanese Donkey Konga. And if you ever wondered why Donkey Konga got 3 entries in Japan and only 2 in America, with the second one being considered an abysmal game, that's why. Apparently the US track list was just absolutely terrible, but Donkey Konga was based heavily on Taiko no Tatsujin. It's the same basic layout and gameplay, only they went with bongos instead of a taiko drum. But it very much played the same. It's just, yeah, Donkey Konga had the US track list was garbage. Then the Japanese track list was significantly better. You know, a mix of current J-pop, a few classics, some random anime theme songs, and so on. So, yeah, I'm actually slightly surprised to find out Donkey Konga is so poorly received in America. But yeah, no, looking at that track list, Yeah. There we go. I'm pretty happy that we might get that. I've heard some pretty good things about the Switch Taiko no Tatsujin, even though it doesn't have all the features. Oh, hey, speaking of Switch ports, it doesn't have the controller, I mean. Speaking of Switch ports, though, Cosmic Star Heroine will be coming to Nintendo Switch August 14th, 2018. Cripes, you want to talk about a kick-started game that was in development for freaking ever. I remember Cosmic Star Heroine from the Penny Arcade report before that got shut down, and thank goodness it did. It was terrible. But, they had really bad writers. But, yeah, no, Cosmic Star Heroine was made by the people who made Breath of Death 7 and Cthulhu Saves the World. And basically those were kind of fun, wacky, parody retro RPGs. And then Cosmic Star Heroine, they're like, hey, what if we actually did like a serious retro RPG and like tried to make it really good and as good as the classics of the past, and so on and so forth. And they did a Kickstarter, and they put a lot of time and effort into it, and it was in development for, let me see if I can find out when they did that Kickstarter. See if we can look that up real quick, like. 2013. 2013 was when they were trying to kickstart Cosmic Star Heroine. The Kickstarter was a success, but that was in development for a ludicrous amount of time. But now it's here. Now it's coming to Switch. And it will be it'll be a game on Switch. Hopefully it's not too overshadowed by Octopath Traveler. It's there we go. It's set for release August 14th, 2018. So maybe at least a few people will have beaten Octopath Traveler by then. Because that's coming out this week, and that is going to be the retro RPG. A lot of people are gonna like that. And hey, what? Well, that's a disappointment of disappointments. Then again, who cares? Okay, so next piece of news. Disappointment of disappointments. Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. I've talked about this game and how it screwed up royally, and about the fact that it sold very poorly, but they sold the season pass, so now they got to make more characters. And they announced that the next character was going to be a female character. Freaking finally. Hey, so they were going to add another one, and I think a lot of us were expecting them to add Tifa. They did not. Tifa was in one of the, she was in Dissidia Duodecim, whatever. Dissidia 012 Duodecim on the PSP, the second Dissidia game. But no, Dissidia NT has revealed their new character, and it's Rinoa. Does anyone care about Rinoa? Maybe I'm overstepping my bounds here. I know there are some Final Fantasy VIII fans, but Rinoa? I mean, couldn't it at least be Quistis or Selphie? Rinoa? Moving on, Armored Core is getting a massive 20-disc OST with all the background music from the series on November 1st. Well, at least From Software is doing something with Armored Core. I'm getting this vibe that From Software feels really bad that they haven't made an Armored Core game in eons. Because if you remember, another thing I've talked about a lot, From Software, before they did Dark Souls, they were the mecha company. And they made Armored Core. And they made a lot of Armored Core. Armored Core 1 with 2 expansions was on PS1. Armored Core 2 and 3 were PS2, and Armored Core 2 had 1 expansion, and then 3 had 5 or 6 expansions. There was a lot. Armored Core 4 and 4 Answer, which was the expansion for that, was 360, along with Armored Core 5 and Armored Core 5 Verdict Day. So they did, 2 Armored Cores with 2 expansions on 360 PS3. And we haven't heard from Armored Core since Armored Core 5 Verdict Day. And it's been a while. They've been too busy making Dark Souls to make the franchise that put them on the map the first time. And it's actually questionable if they even can make a good Armored Core game, because a lot of the Armored Core staff seems to have left and begun working on Daemon X Machina for the Nintendo Switch, leaving likely because they were not necessary, / they weren't making Armored Core games, and they probably don't specialize in Dark Souls. So it's going to be interesting to see what From Software tries to do with their next Armored Core. They're promising they're making one, they're working on one, but they haven't had anything to really show for it. And now there's a big old 20-disc OST box set. That is pretty ludicrous. I kind of like that. Well, okay. Apparently, crap, have they given that a physical release? So, The World Ends With You, a game everyone who isn't me likes, is coming to Nintendo Switch. And, yeah, apparently there's going to be a special edition in Japan called, the It's a Wonderful Bag edition. That comes with, like, a sack of stuff. See, mini soundtrack, art book, stylus pen, pretty nice, an acrylic stand of Neku, decal stickers, tin badge sticker set. Not gonna give us actual badges? Come on. And a tote bag. Nice, I guess. Anyway, it is set to hit Japan on September 27th for Nintendo Switch, and will be coming to America and Europe fall 2018. I honestly really hate The World Ends With You. I thought it was an awful game, but a lot of people really like it. So, more power to you. It's coming to Switch. Now it's significant. Actually, that's a good question. A lot of people have been mentioning that they could do DS games on the Switch by flipping the system sideways. I wonder if they'll have a mode for that to let you do the whole dual character thing, since it was originally a what's the word I'm looking for? It was originally a DS game. And part of the shtick was that you had one character on the top screen, one character on the bottom screen. You controlled the character on the top screen with the D-pad and maybe the buttons, and the character on the bottom screen with the touch screen. And then, of course, they tweaked that because they did a tablet version. Actually, that's a thing to worry about. Since the Switch version is likely based on the tablet version, and Square Enix has a record now of just taking their cell phone games and slapping them on consoles and PC with barely any tweaks or adjustments. I wonder if that'll be the case for The World Ends With You final remix. Will they put in the effort to make it a worthwhile rendition of The World Ends With You, or is this going to be yet another cheap cash grab, only with a jacked up price tag because it's The World Ends With You and they know they can get away with it? Something to be at least slightly concerned about as we inch ever closer to that. Anyway, it is now time to take a break, so please enjoy Womp Womp by Vali featuring Jeremy here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind, and stay tuned for more GameBabble Live. That was Sleeping Dogs by Zach Wilde featuring Corey Taylor here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. And alright, you win, Renoa. You win. Gonna be honest, not a big fan of the character. Not a big fan of the game she's from. However, during the break, I did watch Renoa's gameplay trailer for Final Fantasy Dissidia NT, and I forgot about the dog. I forgot about Angelo. Yes, if you are wondering if she has Angelo Cannon, she does. It is a regular move and appears to be the basis of most of her arsenal. For those of you unfamiliar, for some reason, Renoa was able to load her dog onto her crossbow and fire it at enemies back in Final Fantasy VIII. And you could do that again. But it's very interesting because after you launch your dog at the enemies, you can command Angelo to do a bunch of other attacks, actually giving her a very interesting playstyle. Now, me personally, I would have given this playstyle to, Shadow from Final Fantasy VI with his dog Interceptor. In fact, I think just looking at it, it's like this would have made more sense for Shadow and Interceptor. But admittedly, Shadow has only ever commanded his dog. He never had a dog cannon. And to Renoa's credit, dog canon is pretty good. It's pretty good. So, okay, she might actually be a fun character to play if Final Fantasy Dissidia NT was a fun game to play. Unfortunately, it isn't. To anyone unfamiliar, just for the heck of it, let's just talk about this. Final Fantasy Dissidia was a Final Fantasy fighting game released on the PSP. People liked it. It was fun. It was a bit weird, especially the fact that you had to do weak attacks that didn't do any damage to charge up your strong attacks that did do damage based on how many weak attacks you did. It was more than a little on the convoluted side. But a lot of people liked it, found it to be a fun little arena fighter, and folks were like, wow, I really wish there was a console release of this. Then a couple years back, they did an arcade version called just Final Fantasy Dissidia, and it was released in Japanese arcades, but the arcade version was 3-on-3. And that version has gotten a home port as Final Fantasy Dissidia NT. And it has disappointed people horribly. Because the story mode is set up really weird. Like, you don't actually play the story mode. You play random modes to earn story coins to unlock cutscenes from the story mode. It's really dumb. But the bigger problem is that in Final Fantasy Dissidia NT, you practically can't play one-on-one. There's a way through free play mode you can kind of sort of make one-on-one happen, but it's kind of 3-on-3 only. And it being 3-on-3 only means no local multiplayer. You can't just do one-on-one split screen. On top of that, because of how chaotic 3-on-3 gets, they simplified the combat drastically, giving you only one strong attack instead of like 4 or 5. And so and again, the strong attacks are what deal the actual damage, so they drastically scaled back the depth of the combat, forced this 3-on-3 gameplay, and you can't play single player, or you can play single player, you can't play 2-player local, so you're forced to find 5 other people to play with online, and then you have to hope that they all have good internet connections, because no, the netcode is not particularly good, so no, you will never have a good connection. Basically, Final Fantasy Dissidia NT was a huge mistake, and it pissed off a lot of people, because so many people have waited, I think, about a decade for a home version of Final Fantasy Dissidia. They get one, and they screw it up. And they screwed it up so badly, and it is sold so poorly that we're not entirely sure they're going to make a proper one. And it's a shame, because they could fix Final Fantasy Dissidia NT very easily. You see, despite the fact that they've cut it back from like 4 or 5 strong attacks to just 1, those attacks are still in the game. You just have to pick which one you want to equip. So they could bring back the 4 or 5 strong attacks. It still plays like Dissidia. And if they just put in a one-on-one mode and some way to do 2-player split screen, the game would be fine, and I would buy it, because I would really like to actually get serious with a Final Fantasy Dissidia game. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the direction they're headed in, and that makes me very, very sad, because I kind of really want to play the game. But I played the beta, and I said, no, this is not for me. And pretty much everyone has said, yeah, no, this is not the Dissidia I know and love. And it makes me sad, because I'd like a good Final Fantasy Dissidia. But, like I said, they were selling the season pass for this thing. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to add 6 more characters. And so that locks them in to making a bunch more characters. Whether they want to or not, whether they sold or not, it is now an obligation. People have already paid for your characters, so they gotta release those characters, and it's and so now here we are with Vayne Solidor, Locke and Locke Cole, and Renoa, Hartilli. Those are the three characters we have so far in the DLC character roster. We'll see how the roster gets fleshed out later. I'm expecting massive disappointment. But yeah, just... Man, Dissidia NT was such a mess, and it makes me sad. Because that could have been a good game. Ooh, so yeah, that's about where we're at with that. Let me tell you. I think I am going to give y'all another break, because I need to go look up some more video game news and information for the show. Because, it's admittedly a little bit of a slowish week. Not the slowest week, but, a little slow. Not too much going on. Although, actually, I just realized, from reading that list of game releases, what's the name of that game again? Real Tennis VR? Dream Match Tennis VR. Yeah, it did not show up on that release list. Because it's a VR game, and no one really properly reports those, it seems. Yep, that's the way it tends to go with VR. New games every week. No one reports on them. But I do. All sorts of ridiculous, stupid things. So, okay, yeah, I'm going to kick y'all back to the music. I'm going to look some things up, and I will get back to you shortly enough. But until then, here's Catch a Body by Livia featuring Quavo here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and please stay tuned for more. That was Make You Feel Pretty by Lovely the Band here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. And welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. Little bit of a slow week, a little bit of a shaky week with the internet deciding to be stupid over here. But we're pulling it together. We're having ourselves a good time. So here's a weird one to talk about. They have just announced that Asterix and Obelix XXL2 is being remastered, and that they are making an Asterix and Obelix XXL3 for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, and it will be launching November 29th. And you're probably going, what in the heck is that? Well, it's a European comic series that has been getting video games since, like, the Atari 2600. There's tons of these games out there. But I remember hearing in sort of passing that Asterix and Obelix, one of the XXL games, I'm assuming too, was actually like a really good Dynasty Warriors clone. But I'm getting mixed readings from this. Some people are like, oh yeah, it's a really good Dynasty Warriors clone that Americans really missed out on because it was only released in Europe. And others are saying none of the XXL games were good. Either way, it's getting remastered, and I'm kind of curious. I looked up some trailer for the old PS2 game, and it looks like a weird combination platformer Dynasty Warriors clone. And I'm like, well, that's an interesting combination. Honestly, it looks so cartoony and chaotic that I'm like, you know what? Unless they are charging some kind of ludicrous price, I think I'm in, especially because I think they're implying this is getting a U.S. release. And even if it isn't, hey, guess what? We're not region-locked anymore. So, yeah. Although actually shipping from Europe is stupid. Still, I look forward to giving these games a shot. And I find them to be a very interesting and unexpected thing. Speaking of interesting and unexpected, Override Mech City Brawl has been announced for PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. It is apparently a Brazilian-developed arena combat mech fighter that looks way too good for what it sounds like. Like, I'm looking at their gameplay footage, and this game looks nuts. It's not going to be a full-price game. It looks like it's probably going to be download only, but yeah, and it's getting really close to release. Apparently, they started development in 2014, and now it's back on track. They've got a closed beta from August 10th to the 12th, which I'm probably going to sign up for, because I'm really, really curious about this. In fact, they're putting in, like, the idea is, okay, it's a big old mech combat game. They've got 12 different mechs, and some of them are kind of goofy, some of them are kind of cool, and you also are in big, fully destructible cities while you're fighting. Visuals look great. Game looks super fast-paced, and yeah, it's got 4-player split screen, and it even has a goofy mode. Oh, cool, you can even customize your mechs, but even has a goofy mode where each player controls a different limb of the mech, and you can kind of try to Power Ranger it together. So, which is just, like, trying to build an entire game around that is very hard. I know Shigeru Miyamoto has been trying to pull that off since the N64 to no avail, but making it a bonus mode in a mecha fighter, where everyone's just flailing around trying to each control their own body part of the mech, that could be really fun. I look forward to trying it out. And yeah, the game looks really promising. Override, Mech City Brawl, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. I don't see a Switch release. Did I automatically say Switch? I keep saying Switch. It should get a Switch release. But anyway, no, PS4, Xbox One, PC. I'm looking forward to giving this thing a shot, if at all possible. Looks promising. Moving on. Hey, we got a release date for the Switch version of Go Vacation, and apparently it's this month. Yeah, July 25th for the Switch version of Go Vacation. So, this is one I can talk a little bit about, because Go Vacation is it's a kind of fascinating Wii game. You see, back on the Wii, they released a game called Wii Ski, which was sort of a free-roaming open-world skiing game that used the balance board. And I admit, I bought the balance board entirely because of this, because the control scheme was just brilliant. The balance board was your skis, Wiimote and Nunchuck were your ski poles, and believe it or not, the friggin' thing actually worked. It was a pretty fun little skiing game. And yeah, you had this big old mountain, there were people you could talk to, and they gave you different missions, and it was pretty fun. And I knew I was onto something when I was playing the game, and it suddenly started playing a non-vocal version of Lonely Rolling Star from Katamari Damacy, and I was like, okay, wait, what? And they made a sequel to it, which was Wii Ski and Snowboard. Yes, they added in snowboarding. But after Wii Ski and Snowboard, they were like, well, where do we go from here? And that was Go Vacation. Go Vacation took pretty much the entire mountain from Wii Ski and Snowboard, shoved it in there, then added a bunch of other resorts. So we've got a beach resort and a city resort and a mountain resort now as well. And each of these resorts has a bunch of mini games. There's 50 different mini games you can play. You traverse the different areas in different ways. You can hop on jet skis and ATVs on the beach resort and ride horses in the mountain resort and like roller skate around the city doing tricks almost Jet Set Radio style in the city resort. And they supported balance board for all this, and it was also, okay, it also had 4-player split screen, and it was just this crazy free... It is a 4-player simultaneous split screen, free-roaming, open-world minigame collection that supported the balance board as well as the Wii Motion Plus for certain games. And you look at it, and you think, okay, this is dumb, this is shovelware. I see the sort of me knockoff characters and the cutesy style, and, it's yet another minigame collection. And then you find out it had a staff of over 200 people consisting of the folks who worked on Ridge Racer, and there is actually a minigame version of Ridge Racer in there in the city resort. And it's like, what even is this? Oh yeah, and on top of all of that, there's an area where you can build your own house and furnish it as well. So it's also Animal Crossing. It's also The Sims Animal Crossing free-roaming open-world minigame collection for the Switch with motion control. It is, for the Wii. It was the Wiiest game ever made. You couldn't find a more Wii game, and it was pretty okay. I'm not going to say that it was something phenomenal that everyone needs to rush out and get now that it comes to the Switch, but it was fascinating just how much Namco really shoved into Go Vacation. And they actually advertised it pretty well. And I believe it actually sold pretty well. And now it's getting a Switch version with enhanced graphics. The graphics aren't, like, super enhanced, but it looks better. It looks unquestionably better than the Wii release. And yeah, let's look at this. Key features. Kauai Island is a paradise resort with 50-plus co-op and competitive activities. Explore 4 huge paradise resorts. Enjoy leisure activities like scuba diving, horseback riding, and sea fishing. Try out extreme sports. Compete to be the best. Up to 4 players on one system or local wireless with a variety of control styles, including motion control. That one intrigues me. A variety of control styles, including motion control. Did they actually remove motion control from the games? Can you play without motion control? I'm curious about this. Share a Joy-Con controller with a friend for instant multiplayer fun. The Joy-Con wheel accessory is optional for steering vehicles, sold separately. Customize your character and dog companion. Oh yeah, you could get a dog. Daily presents include new breeds of dog and costume. Daily challenges appear in sets of 3 across the island. New on Nintendo Switch, marine and mountain fishing with 30-plus species of fish, 40-plus types of animals to photograph and store in your in-game photo collection, and find boxes filled with rewards dropped by a plane. Okay! It is the most random, out-of-nowhere Switch release, but I'm kind of curious because, what? Okay. Go Vacation's back on Switch. I kind of want to give it a spin. Kind of want to give it a go. So, that's where we're at with that. Also, time to talk about Soul Calibur 6. They have added Talim. Yes, Talim is in Soul Calibur 6. Her outfit is very similar to her original Soul Calibur 2 outfit with a little bit of Soul Calibur 3 in it. But, yeah, Talim's back. Thank goodness. She was one of my mains. I always liked Talim. It's good to see her in Soul Calibur 6, which, if you're unfamiliar, Soul Calibur 6 is like the Mortal Kombat 9 of Soul Calibur. It goes back to Soul Calibur 1, but it's supposed to be an alternate universe retelling of it, so a pseudo-reboot thing. Either way, the point is they realized Soul Calibur 5 was a mistake. Big time. Which is a shame, because I like Natsu, but other than that, yeah, no, Soul Calibur 5 was a huge mistake. So we're going back to that, and I'm like, okay, that's good, that's cool, that sounds super fun, except I'm looking at Talim's character model, and I'm like, this is her Soul Calibur 4 model. I know that face. I know the way this looks. A lot of people forget, Soul Calibur 4 was a gorgeous-looking game, as was Soul Calibur 5. Like, they plateaued. They literally can't make a Soul Calibur game that looks better than Soul Calibur 4 and 5. Soul Calibur 6 pretty much looks the same, but I'm looking at this character model, and I'm like, that looks like the same character model. And that has me worried. Because, obviously, Soul Calibur 6 was announced very, very recently. The game comes out this year. It's supposedly almost done. They're clearly recycling a hefty chunk of assets, different animations and character models. That's not uncommon, but I'm looking at it and I'm going, is this, how rushed is this? Is Soul Calibur 6 going to be rushed? Is it just going to feel like a port of Soul Calibur 4? Will it even have as much content as Soul Calibur 4? Because that was the whole reason why Soul Calibur 5 sucked so hard. It was a contraction pack, which people always laugh when I say that, but it's true. Soul Calibur 5 was using the same engine and visuals as Soul Calibur 4, but it had less characters, less fighting styles, and honestly, less moves per character. It played a bit faster, and it had way better online play, but it had less parts for character customization, and way less content considering none of the characters had endings, which was a huge problem because the whole idea with Soul Calibur 5 was, it was Soul Calibur the next generation. We're introducing all these new characters, and none of them are explained in-game. So you're replacing people's favorite characters like Taki with new characters like Natsu, and there's no way to endear them to the player because no one knows who they are. Shoot, I even checked the Soul Calibur wiki on Natsu, and they're like, we don't know. Yeah, they outright say on the Soul Calibur wiki that her personality wasn't very developed because she was only in Soul Calibur 5, where no one got any plot or endings outside of the art book. Except for Patroclus, the worst protagonist ever. Soul Calibur 5 was a mistake, and it was also incredibly rushed, because apparently the Soul Calibur team thought the series ended with Soul Calibur 4 only... Okay, I gotta tell this story, because it's kind of amazing. So, roll it back. 360 PS3 console generation starts, and one of the first fighting games we get of that generation is Soul Calibur 4. And it has all the characters we wanted. It looks gorgeous. It's lacking in stages. It's a little rough around the edges. Netcode sucks. Customization, in some ways, not as good as Soul Calibur 3. Not as many parts. But it's okay. You know, it's a good start, was my opinion on Soul Calibur 4. Like, it had some dumb things with the plot, but for the most part, I was like, yeah, Soul Calibur 4 is a good start. I can't wait for Soul Calibur 5. And then we waited. And we waited, and we waited. We got to a point where Namco went Tekken crazy. The Tekken series is, of course, their other big fighting game series. And they had 5, at least 5, there were probably more, different Tekken games on the horizon. They had Tekken Tag 2 coming. Like, okay, I think they had Tekken 6 announced, Tekken Tag 2 about to release. I remember there was the Switch version of Tekken Tag 2 and the 3DS Tekken game, and Tekken Tag 1 was being re-released on PS3 with the Tekken movie included. Wii U, the Wii U version of Tekken Tag. That's what I meant, not Switch. I keep saying Switch. I'm sorry, it's a Switchy day. The Wii U version of Tekken Tag 2 was about to come out. So they had like 5 different Tekken games all announced, and everyone's like, wow, that's great, that's awesome. So when's the next Soul Calibur, though? And Namco is just like, you want a new... but the series is done. And everyone... And they're like, oh crap, people care about Soul Calibur, because yes, they do! While the hardcore fighting game community probably prefers Tekken to some degree, there's a lot of people that can't stand Tekken. There's a lot of people that prefer Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur is especially way, way, way more popular with the average casual consumer. Because, yeah, you can mash buttons and make flashy things happen, and everything is super epic, and it's incredibly pretty, and really, there's no other game like Soul Calibur out there. There's no other game that is all about epic fantasy sword fighting. Nothing. There's no alternative to Soul Calibur. It's a very unique, interesting game that has a significant fan base and a lot of people that really like it. And Namco just thought the series was done with Soul Calibur 4, even though Soul Calibur 4 was like, hey, this is a great start, I can't wait for Soul Calibur 5. So they very quickly cobbled together Soul Calibur 5 out of Soul Calibur 4, and at first people really liked it. Like, I remember arguing with people about it, because they're like, no, Soul Calibur 5 is so good, because it's so much faster paced, and it's a way more better, serious, competitive fighter, and I know, like, hardcore fighting gamers are probably laughing at that, because now Soul Calibur 5 is, like, the laughing stock of the series, but when it came out, people defended Soul Calibur 5 super hard, and I was angry, because I was like, this is a contraction pack. Because, like I said, it had less characters, less movesets, less content in general, less customization parts. The only thing it had more of was stages, because Soul Calibur 4 barely had any stages to fight on. Soul Calibur 5 had more stages. And they did add in some new interesting customization features, but there was less customization as a whole, especially because 90% of the clothing counted as underwear or wouldn't allow you to equip other clothing if you had that clothing equipped. And the underwear was only one part. It wasn't like top and bottom underwear. It was just... And I know that sounds silly with me saying it, but no, seriously, like, the ring pants were counted as underwear. There's an item, it's been in the customization for Soul Calibur since Soul Calibur 3. It's a pair of, like, purple bell bottoms with rings along the side, and they count that as a piece of underwear. And I think they also count, like, a t-shirt as a piece of underwear. And as such, you can't have the purple bell-bottoms and a t-shirt equipped at the same time because they both count as a piece of underwear. My favorite example of this debacle was the ripped fishnets, which were DLC. Okay, base game, one of the items you can get, fishnets. They are a sock item. Okay, good. But for DLC, they later released ripped fishnets. They are underwear. If you equip ripped fishnets, you can't wear pants over them or a shirt. And for that matter, the fishnets that are listed as a sock item generally won't allow you to equip things over them either. It was bad. It was really bad. The character customization in Soul Calibur 5 was completely busted because all the different costume parts clashed and you couldn't equip most of them, and there were less than Soul Calibur 4 anyway, which was less than Soul Calibur 3. They kept adding more options but taking away parts and places to equip the parts. That was the other thing. Soul Calibur 3 had more places to equip parts to, thus allowing a greater degree of part choices than Soul Calibur 4 did, and Soul Calibur 4 had more places to equip parts than Soul Calibur 5 did. Just the customization has been gradually getting worse in Soul Calibur as well. So what I'm saying is that Namco has been, like, cripes, that's not even getting into the fact that Namco keeps completely changing the move inputs in each Soul Calibur game for no reason, which has been a complaint of the community for ages. Like, imagine if in one game Ryu's Fireball in Street Fighter was quarter circle forward and punch, and then in another game it's charge back forward punch, and then in another game it's forward punch. That's what we're dealing with the Soul Calibur series. They're constantly, every single game is drastically different, and that's not even getting into the move numbers, because I started counting how many moves per character on average each game had. Soul Calibur 1, now keep in mind, we're using 3D fighter counting, which is to say punch, 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 and punch, 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 each counts as a different move. By this counting, Virtua Fighter 1 had 100 moves per character. Now, the industry average on 3D fighters is about 150 moves per character. And that's how many they had in Soul Calibur 1. Soul Calibur 2 may well have the biggest moveset I have ever seen in a 3D fighting game with 250 moves per character. Soul Calibur 3 had about 60-70 moves per character. Soul Calibur 4 was up to about 130, 140 moves per character. And then Soul Calibur 5 knocks it down to about 90, 100 moves per character. What? And you know, that's the thing. People keep gaining and losing moves, and for some reason, Soul Calibur 2 is the pinnacle of the series in terms of how many moves you have. Some might even argue that you have too many moves, as darn near any conceivable motion or combination of buttons could result in a new move, and thus just mashing different directions and buttons would provide you with ample amounts of mix-up and surprise for your opponent. It's an arguable point, though. Very arguable. Because, of course, people who are really serious about Soul Calibur 2 will say, yeah, no, that's not going to work against a serious player, and it probably won't. Let's be real here. But I find it very interesting that the Soul Calibur series is always in flux, never consistent, even though they do recycle content from one game to the next. And again, I can't say it enough, Soul Calibur 5 was a contraction pack. It was Soul Calibur 4, but less. Yes, it was faster, and they put in, like, more normal super moves. They made some tweaks and changes here and there. But Soul Calibur 4 had more moves per character. It had more characters and fighting styles, and it had proper endings for each character, which is the stickiest sticking point ever, because not only did Soul Calibur 5, I know I've said this a bunch, but not only did Soul Calibur 5 not have endings for characters, it introduced all new characters that we knew nothing about and the game never explained. So we have no clue who Ziba is, we have no clue who Natsu is. The only character we know about is Patroclus, who is the worst protagonist ever. Patroclus is just a monster, and I hate him. And there's something kind of enjoyable about the fact that Namco seriously decided to try to raise up the most hateable character in video game history as a protagonist. But, yeah, it's kind of annoying when the actual protagonist walk by for, like, 2 or 3 fights and then they leave. Because, like, Shiba, Maxi, whatever Xiao Yu's successor was in Natsu are, like, the real main characters. They're the actual heroes. They have an interesting plot in the art book. But no, we're going to focus on this loser instead. Anyway, we need to take a break. So here's Mountain at My Gate by Foles here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. Please enjoy and stay tuned for at least a little more of GameBabble. That was Bodies by Car Seat Headrest here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. That is a band name. Car Seat Headrest. That's called crap. We need a band name. What do you got? Car Seat Headrest. Just first object you see. Okay. Anyway, welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. Sorry about the slightly longer break there than usual. Anyway, it is time to go into the final part of the show. So what else have we found? Well, I did stumble across something very interesting. Valkyrian Arc, Hero School Story, which is an Indonesian video game. Apparently, P-Cube is going to publish the Indonesian-developed Valkyrian Arc Hero School Story, wherein you play the principal of a school for RPG heroes. You build a facility, you train a bunch of heroes in order to try to make them good for saving the world. And apparently they said that there's, what did they say? Something like, 5 different queendoms fighting for the right to inherit the land, and a mysterious evil lurking on the horizon. And it'll be up to you to decide your allegiances and the role your school will play in the story of Valkyria. Nice. That sounds promising. And it looks like a mobile phone game, but the gameplay looks promising. Like, visually, not that great, but not, like, hideous. It's just, you look at it and you go, okay, yeah, no, that's not pushing any hardware. But it's coming to PS4, Switch, and PC, so I'll be able to play that on the go. Looks like it'll be a good fit for the Switch. And also, I should probably mention this, after you have built this school and you've raised all these different heroes, you can form them into adventuring parties, send them out to go on quests, and then you get to play a friggin' action RPG of some kind. I think it's action RPG. It's real time, if nothing else. And it's like, okay, that looks extra fun. So even if you're not into the whole school building simulation game thing, the adventuring part of it could still be really fun. And even this looks really promising, and I don't think it's going to be particularly expensive either. And they're going for a 2018 release date, so some random time this year. I don't know. All I know is that I'm in. I definitely want to play this game. It looks like it could be really fun. It's great to see games like this. I always like to highlight where developers are from, because I've taken a bit of an interest in this. A lot of this stems from the fact that if you've listened to this show, you're probably well aware that I like Japanese games. And back on Xbox Live, back when I was hanging out with people on 360, people always gave me crap about it, because I didn't have a lot of interest in American-made games, and I was very Japanese-centric, and they were like, yo, what's up with that? Why won't you give American games a chance, yada, yada, yada. And, it's not like Japanese games are better, and we'd have a lot of arguments about this, and it's like, why do you like Japanese games? Is it just because you're a weeb? Is it just because they're from Japan? And I started thinking about this, and it's like, no, because I like some American-made games, but the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, no, each country has their own specialties. See, it goes like this. I thought about this. It's sort of a degrees of separation thing. It goes like this. You know how a Capcom game feels like a Capcom game. Even if it's not made by the exact same team, like when it's an adjacent team, you still have some employee crossover. You've got newcomers learning from the old guard. That creates this culture and this certain skill set that gives a Capcom game a Capcom feel, and gives a Konami game a Konami feel, and gives a Square Enix game a Square Enix feel. And it isn't because so much of the company, but the people they hired, of course. That's always the most important thing. The people who made the game, and then they train other people on how to make games and the way to put them together. And so, yeah, each company has their own unique feel to each game. That's almost undeniable. Anyone who's been gaming for a long time will say, yeah, a game from this company feels like a game from this company. Now, would you or would you not agree that a Capcom game and a Konami game are more similar than a Capcom game and an Epic Games game? Or a Capcom game and a Bungie game? But you would also say that an Epic Games game and a Bungie game are somewhat similar. The same way a Capcom game and a Konami game would be somewhat similar. Because, of course, you have, like, each of these companies, sometimes, you know, their employees might go to another company, or they might learn from people who worked at different companies, and more than that, they grew up in a different culture, but the same culture. You know, Japan is actually it's a pretty different place from America in a lot of ways. And the way they teach game design in Japan may be different. They almost certainly have different priorities than Western developers. And Western developers have different priorities than Japanese developers. But then, once I started realizing this, I was like, well, wait a second, what about everywhere else? Because I was playing a Korean game on Xbox 360 called Magna Carta 2. And I was really liking it. And one of the things I liked was how it felt like a pleasant blend of Japanese and Western RPG elements. And I was like, this is a very Korean RPG. Because it also had a bit of its own flavor as well. And of course, that's because in Korea, Korea kind of has this grudge against Japan, because there were kind of a lot of horrible war atrocities Japan committed in the past that they don't really own up to, and they kind of sweep under the rug, because that's what Japan does. They sweep everything under the rug. Shoot, even Japan's critical about other people in Japan are critical about how much Japan sweeps under the rug. If you ever played the zombie spin-off of the Yakuza series, Yakuza Dead Souls, they try to, the crux of that game was that they tried to sweep a zombie outbreak under the rug. They just put up a freaking wall between the zombie zone and the rest of the city and acted like nothing happened. You just don't go past the wall. Which is a thing that Japan actually does. That's how they handled Fukushima. So, Japan is very much a country of sweeping things under the rug. Korea, not a fan of that, because they're horrible war atrocities that Japan just really hadn't apologized for, and so they have a deep-seated grudge against Japan. A grudge so deep it created a Soul Calibur character, or a Soul Edge character, technically. No joke. The whole reason Hwang Sung-yo in Soul Edge exists is because Korea hates Mitsurugi. When they released Soul Edge in Korea, they removed Mitsurugi and they created Hwang Sung-yo. And then for Soul Edge 2.0, they put Hwang in the rest of the games for the rest of the world. This was how deep it runs. But as such, Korea, generally against video game consoles, because 99.9% of those come from Japan. They have a very PC gaming-centric culture, but at the same time, they still had a lot of influence from Japanese media. And so you get this weird mix of Eastern and Western elements in there with a bit of their own flavor based on the fact that for some reason so many Korean games are like, MMO based. It's weird, okay? And then, once you go from there, you begin to notice the different, once you start paying attention to it, you start to notice the different feeling and flavors that each country brings to the table. So, I'm starting to be familiar with like, Mexican and South American made games. I'm really curious to see what a Brazilian robot fighting game feels like. Considering, what's that game called? Fight and Rage. Fight and Rage isn't from Brazil, but it's from like a country, I forget what country it was, but it's like a country right next to Brazil, so it's still a very similar culture. And a lot of people really liked the beat-em-up Fight and Rage. And so I'm curious to see and then I believe there's actually a Brazilian-made fighting game in development. It has been for a while. I've played a few Brazilian-made original Mugen characters. So, and yeah, I'm curious to see what a Brazilian-developed mech fighting game is going to feel like. In Indonesia, I don't think I've ever played an Indonesian game. And I'm kind of curious, because, yeah, the Valtherian Arc Hero School story looking kind of promising. So there you go. That's about where I'm at, and I am not kidding. Before I close, part of the reason I had to take that lengthy break is because I'm really worried about Soul Calibur 6. I know I'm picking it up, but there's a part of me that expects it to be another contraction pack. I really need to look at that character select screen and count the slots, because they're recycling a lot of bits of Soul Calibur 4 to the point where I am worried that Soul Calibur 6 might have been better if it was just a port of Soul Calibur 4 with more stages and better online. Hopefully that won't be the case. Hopefully Soul Calibur 6 will be a worthy purchase in its own right. But having said that, I am prepared to explode if that game does not deliver after the debacle that was Soul Calibur 5 that we discussed earlier. Anyway, though, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of GameBabble Live. It has indeed been a hoot. And, now it's time for us to conclude the show. So thank you so much for listening. Tune in next week for more GameBabble Live, Tuesday, from noon to 3 p.m. And hopefully the internet will be working. Until then, here is Turn by the Wombats, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and please enjoy.